everyone. I'm here today with Dr. Robert Black. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and it's one of my favorite times of the day. It has been incredibly rewarding and a gift, really. I call my sacred space to be here with people like yourself. Thank you so much, Robert. So, Robert is the author of Give Back the Pain Emotional Healing Through Source Completion Therapy. He's a therapist, a writer, professor, and also the founder and director of the Source Completion Therapy Center in Plainview, New York. So, this is my a basic introduction about you, but as you know, I love when my guests introduce themselves and tell the whole story how they came to do what they do and be what they are today or who they are today. So I would love for you to expand on the topic of who you are, Robert.
Sure. And it's my honor and pleasure to be with you as well, Valeria. And I
Thank you.
admire the great work that you do.
Thank you.
So, regarding me, and I think there are basically two parts of me that would give people an idea of who I am.
Yeah.
The first part being ever since I was a little child, a little boy, I always had a deep sensitivity and compassion and empathy for those who struggled or suffered in some way. Whether it was a child being bullied at school, or whether it was something I read in a book about poverty or homelessness or injustice, I always felt intense feelings about it. Um, and then when I was about 9 years old, and this is with me every day. I remember being homesick, um, and I was in bed, and I watched the original Les Miserables.
Yeah.
It was black and white, and I remember watching it, and it was about the misery of the French masses in the early 1800s, I believe. And it centers around two characters. One person, he steals a loaf of bread to feed his family because
Yeah.
they were in poverty and starving.
Yeah.
And the other is a man, a detective, um, who chases him and torments him to punish him throughout decades, literally. And the pain in that, every character was in pain and misery and suffering. And I just remember sobbing at nine
Yeah.
years old. So
Yeah.
I could still feel the tears on my
Yeah.
cheeks.
Yeah.
So that propelled me. I think those
Mm.
feelings of deep empathy propel me to do what I do. Now, in terms of what else, the second part, what gives people an idea of who I am, is what gives me joy in life, joy and pleasure in life.
Yeah.
It's never been money, it's never been
Mm.
material possessions. It's always been the simple things in life.
Yeah.
I love being in the mountains and I enjoy hiking. And when I do that, I breathe in the fresh, clean, cool mountain air. I feel the coolness on my skin.
Yeah.
I smell the earth.
Yeah.
Um, I look at the majesty and the splendor of the trees, and I feel almost as if it's heaven for me. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Mm.
I also love looking at a
Mm.
clear starlit night,
Yeah.
and when there's no light pollution, or I could get a place there's no light pollution, I can see the Milky Way. I used to be able to do that when I was young, and I
Yeah.
could watch that for hours, and I did, and I just felt like overwhelmed with the idea that I'm part of this, that I'm part of
Mm.
a universe, and it was very special to me, and always stays with me.
Right.
I love being outside with it in a gentle falling snow,
Yeah.
coming in and having a hot chocolate.
Yeah.
I just love that. I love being with my little grandson,
Mm. Yeah.
and he loves to play with these Lego blocks, and he wants me to build with him and play. And he loves to play superheroes, and sometimes he wants me to play the villain, and
Yeah.
sometimes the superhero. And then all of a sudden, he'll stop and he'll look up at me and he'll say, Papa, I really love you. Can you stay with me and live with me forever, son? So
Yeah.
what could be better than that? I don't
Mm.
see anything better than that in life
Mm.
for me. And then I like a good conversation and a good cup of coffee together.
Mm.
So that conceptualizes the two parts. I think give people an idea of who I am.
Yes, very much. Wow, I love it all. As I said before, many times by email and talking to you. It seems like it takes sensitivity, isn't it, to be aware of other people's suffering and the simple things and the beauty that's everywhere in the natural world, and in small things, small pleasures, like you said, the chocolate, hot chocolate, coffee, food in general, the appreciation for what's here. So all that sounds very spiritual to me, and that's what comes to mind when listening to you. It almost feels like a meditation. It's more like a guided meditation. So, do you have any spiritual, besides your appreciation for the natural world and then your compassionate and empathic heart and your connection, your deep connection with other human beings, of course, your family members? Um, First, we usually get very much attached to them in a very deep way. Besides that, do you have any other understanding of a spiritual understanding of life itself in yourself?
It's I felt always this sympathy and empathy since I'm a child. I wasn't trained in spirituality.
Yeah,
I don't have I don't believe in organized religion. So
right.
this is so natural to me. I don't know any other way.
Mm,
So
mm,
it's just a natural, spontaneous feeling of what I've always had.
right,
Um, Working with those who are suffering, it added to my understanding of life and what needs to be done and processed with these people so they can um, feel spiritual and they can
mm,
feel hopeful and they can be open to the joy and wonder that life can be.
right,
But the people I deal with, I mainly deal with those who are abused um, or traumatized by their caregivers when they were children. So I deal with adults who were abused when they were children. And let me tell you what happens with that, what the mechanism and what I do with that, how I help
yeah,
them heal. Let me start at the very beginning of life. The way I look at it, what life has shown me, and what my profession has taught me also. To me, we're all basically born pure, innocent, and just bursting with sweet potential.
yeah,
Um, I mean, even a baby's skin smells delicious and sweet. It's
yeah,
just so beautiful. Um, However, here's the catch: as innocent and pure as we are, we're also very dependent and helpless for our caregivers to take care
right,
of us. We have to trust them that they'll feed us when when we're hungry, that they'll change us when we're soiled, and that they'll protect us when
right,
we're in danger. They don't let us stick our hands in electrical sockets or play in traffic,
right,
or they shouldn't lock us in cars in the summertime with the
right,
windows closed. So we trust that they'll take care of us and protect us, and even as we grow, to support us when we're discouraged or disappointed in life, and to be there for us.
yeah,
Here's the catch: if they do the opposite, if they demean us, if they degrade us, if they beat us, if they sexually assault us and molest us, all that sweet potential that we had and innocence, it goes. All that sweetness turns sour,
right,
and a whole bunch of feelings are generated: worthlessness, emptiness, insignificance, unimportance, feelings of being betrayed,
right,
feelings of being powerless,
yeah,
helpless, rage, fury, fear. All of those feelings are generated in this
right,
little child.
right,
But what happens is it's not possible for a child to actually feel those feelings and understand it. Their
yeah,
brain would short circuit. The betrayal would be too overwhelming.
right,
So what happens? The brain tries to protect us, and it represses those feelings. It suppresses those feelings. I like to call it, and the people I work with, we call it stuff it down. That's
yeah,
that's the expression we
yeah,
use. Okay,
yeah,
so we
yeah,
stuff all those feelings down, and then what happens is they fester as we get older. They bubble and they boil, and they turn
right,
into a toxic brew. Okay,
right,
it's emotionally, it's inside, it's turning into no matter. There's no escaping it. That's what
right,
happens.
right,
So and what this toxic brew wants to do, it wants to get out. The subconscious wants to push it out, these feelings. It doesn't like it. It's like, imagine having food poisoning and it's like eating a bad meal. Your
Yeah.
body wants to expel it.
Yeah.
It comes
Right.
out of
Right.
basically any orifice it can.
True.
It's the same as these feelings. The subconscious, it's uncomfortable. You might have nightmares from it. You're just struggling.
Yeah.
But however, for a survival mechanism, the child wanted to keep these feelings down. So the subconscious diverts these feelings onto an
Mm,
obsession, a
yeah.
phobia, an
Yeah.
addiction, um, um, panic attacks, eating
Yeah.
disorders, any way to avoid those feelings
Right.
people create. So they
Right.
come to me with all these symptoms, compulsions and phobias and anxiety disorders. And I try to heal them. And over the course of working with them for a while, I developed a three-phase program to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, at first, I wasn't happy, and had to figure out what worked. I had to go deeper. I had to get into these people to feel these feelings, bring them
Yeah.
out, release them, and then I knew instinctually that then they would be free of those addictions, phobias, anxiety disorders, whatever they're addicted to, drugs, alcohol, gambling, that would evaporate because there'd be
Right.
no need to divert away from these feelings.
Right.
So I created those three-phase process to do just that, and that's what I deal with, and that's what I work with.
Right. Well, I love the way you explain that because it makes a lot of sense. It's very clear and has been my experience. I know has been yours and so many people I know. And one of the challenges I find on a day to day basis, dealing with my family members, for example, who are still dealing with these suppressed feelings, toxic feelings, is that try to find a way to, which I have found many ways, of course, of passing some of what I know to them, but it's really a challenge to ask them to look for help, like, be in contact with somebody like you, a therapist. So, what would you suggest for people out there who are in the same situation that I am, that I am aware of so much of it, but I can't, and I have done a lot of the healing work myself, but how do I pass that on to my people around me, families and friends?
Who are close to you, you have a
Yes,
relationship with them.
yes, yes.
I usually go with my feelings. If there's somebody close to me that I see suffering in some way, I say, look, I really care about you. I love
Yeah,
you. You're
yeah,
so important to me. And I see you struggling. Now, you don't have to take what I'm saying. You could resist it. But I really do see you struggling, and I understand struggling. I've struggled
mm,
myself. So I understand it. I recognize it. I know it. And I would want you to work on this. I would really want you to work on whatever your family
right,
members need to. And I've told friends around me and people I know to do the same. It has to be done with care and love,
right,
and if
right.
it's done with really judgment and curtness and abruptness, and if it's done with annoyance, it's not you're not going to penetrate.
Right.
People will resist that. So it has to be done with caring, and
Yeah.
that's the best way you can do it. You can't force a person
Yeah.
to do this.
No.
But you could
No.
always tell them your feelings. And I see you suffering. That pains me. It pains me deeply to watch this. And how else could I help you? Is what I
Yeah.
often ask.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I remember having a conversation with you like this before, and it stayed with me, especially when you say, I love you, I care for you. You begin the conversation like that.
Yes.
That really resonates, yeah, from the heart. It really sounds true.
If you don't do this sincerely, like from the heart, it will fall
Yeah,
flat. It has to be
right,
done that way.
right. And what I was about to say is that I think I have done that many times already with my family members and my husband too. And they tend to go to a certain extent or level. They try, and then there's a fallback or a hesitation to continue
Mhm.
to do the healing work.
Yes.
So, is that something that is for most people? What does it take really to engage with healing? Are they afraid of the process? What's happening?
It's a great question. And it's really, an excellent observation. They are afraid. Everybody who I works with is afraid. Sometimes they tell me I've been working with people 10 years, sometimes or longer, Every
Yeah.
time they come to, I'm scared of what we're going to uncover today and what I
Mm.
need to feel today. They're
Right.
frightened of feeling. That was what
Right.
they felt as a child. That's why they had to
Yeah.
stuff all these feelings. This is a
Yeah.
very difficult process.
Mm.
Very hard to feel those feelings. Very painful.
Yeah.
However, it's the only one that I found that works permanently and makes long-lasting change. There are behavioral therapies and cognitive therapies. They might work on a symptom or two, they'll feel better for a while, but they don't really get in and clean out all these feelings that have been suppressed. And when you don't do that, those feelings will always come out in a dysfunctional way. 100% guarantee it. I will guarantee it will
Ah.
always come out. I've had people that even said to me,
Yeah.
look, my father beat me bats, my mother beat me with belts. I'm fine. I'm really
Mm.
okay. I don't need to work on therapy. And then as I'm watching them, they're angry at the waitress, they're angry at
Yeah.
the bus driver.
Yeah.
They start to honk the horns. This person's going too slow. This person's going too
Yeah.
fast. So there's something. They just can't. They went to Atlantic City and lost $3,000. So I know that they're not finished and they're not healed. So
Mm.
those feelings need to be dredged up, felt, processed, and that's the only way I've seen for permanent change to take place. It's not. I mean, no one wants to feel these feelings, and that's what I always tell them. No, you
Right.
shouldn't want to do this. It's not fun, but it's healing. I don't want to go to
Yeah.
surgery for my Achilles tendon that I busted in playing tennis, but
Yeah.
I do it. It heals me.
Right, right, right. I wish for everyone who is watching this conversation to understand that is it might not be easy, but it's necessary for our own well-being and peace, and to open the heart, because that's what we really need to do here in this
Yes,
lifetime, from my perspective.
yes.
So another question I have, you just mentioned being healed. So what does it look like? That's one of the questions that I ask everyone who engage with me in these conversations, the freedom to feel. So what does freedom look like from the perspective of feelings and emotions when we are healed from all the hardships and the traumas? It's sad to say, but it's yes.
Yeah, that's a great question, and what it looks like to me, for myself and those who I work with, once you're able to get free of these feelings that burden you, they're like an anchor, they're like
Yeah.
handcuffs, okay, that weigh you down. Once you get free of these feelings, um, you're free of the addictions and the phobias, the eating
Mm,
disorders, and all the anxiety disorders, whatever. The version you choose. Some people just choose numbing. They can numb themselves from life.
right.
That all that ends. So all of that goes away. The feelings go away. They don't. The intensity of the feelings go. The
Yeah.
memories stay. You can't erase memories. So they will always
Yeah.
stay. And at times they'll come up, and you just have to continue to work on them. But once you release enough of these feelings, all of those diversions and those dysfunctional behaviors, they do evaporate. So you're free then. You're free of these feelings, you're free of the diversions, then you're free to be open to whatever
Mm,
life has to offer that's beautiful and wonderful and magical. You really are open to that
mm,
then.
yeah. Right, to the possibilities.
They're endless. They're
Y-
endless.
yeah, it's so true. For me, the work has been, we talked about this before, has been self awareness, because I know the body, it still remembers. So
Yes.
when I am triggered to kind of associate whatever the situation is with something that happened in the past, I know it's coming from memory, from traumatic memory.
Yes.
And then it's very important to know the difference, because I also know, Robert, that we are humans. We go through life. Life is still happening, and we could become traumatized again. We are, in a way, free to feel anger, resentment. Anything could come up, really.
Yes.
And it's not something that we're trying to suppress. And that's what I'm very careful these days, not to suppress anything, because
Good.
I did it before for so long.
Yes.
So, how do we learn to know the difference between those feelings that are still coming up from traumatic memories and those that are just fresh, that they are happening in the moment?
Yeah, that's another great question. And again, thank you so much for your questions. They are really poignant and right and then, and terrific. So usually the key to it is the intensity of the feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm in a restaurant and the eggs are cold
Yeah.
and I'm getting it's so intense, how can you do this to me? How could this look? You're
Yeah.
hurting me. What's the injustice in that? And the eggs are
Yeah.
cold, and I'm angry at the waiter, angry at the chef. Doesn't he know better? I've been here 40 times already.
Yeah.
Okay, that's intensity. Okay,
Yeah.
rather than then
Yeah.
Sarah, can you just these are a little cold. Would you mind warming them up for me?
Yeah.
That's how you usually tell. It's the intensity of feeling that's probably inappropriate.
Mm.
So that's the
Yeah.
trigger. That's what that's what it says. So a lot of my
Ah,
again another example. When I had one client a while ago come in, and she I was smart. Didn't smile at her at first. I just said hello, and she was furious at me for not smiling
ah,
at her when she
mm,
came in. I'm just starting with her.
yeah.
And that was so intense. I said, "Well, where do you think that anger is coming from?" I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm just meeting you. So we
Mm,
had to start looking at that. It was my father. He was never happy, and when I was around, he never
ah,
smiled. He never laughed at me. So
right.
that was the deeper reason. So
Right.
anytime the intensity is for something that's probably inappropriate, that's the trigger, and that tells you that it's deeper.
Mm, mm. That's another beautiful, insightful answer. From I love that because it makes a lot of sense. Of course, yeah, the intensity. Why would we get angry out of something very small? Like it's so small. What are you saying about the eggs? Like there's no reason really.
And I see it all the time when I'm at the diner or the restaurant or on the
You do.
airlines. These people that you got to wear a mask and they're fighting everybody, and that's
Yes.
intensity is from somewhere else, probably their parents. Road
Yeah.
rage is a good example of this also. People
Yeah.
start get either for parking space or road rage. They'll get out of the car. Some have
Yeah.
guns and the tire irons. They want to hit the person,
God.
kill the person over if they were cut off. It can't be from that. All that fury and
Yeah.
rage, it's
Yeah.
not because you were cut off.
Right.
Someone in your life that was probably your father or mother disrespected you, degraded you, demeaned you.
Mm,
You never
mm,
dealt with it. It festers and it boils and it comes out in a road rage. So
mm.
that's again the answer. Another example. It's the intensity of the feeling.
Right. And that what makes me think that it just came to me as I listened to you is that we live in societies that are uh, traumatized, that almost like massive trauma being reflected, being manifested everywhere. I see that
Yeah,
too. It's
it is.
interesting.
And then you add the stress of normal living, the
Yeah.
finances of your children, supporting
Right.
them, sending them to school,
Right.
paying your rent, your mortgage, and then if you add that on top of the feelings that people have stored in, you have an explosion like a
Right.
volcano.
Right. And that's probably what we are seeing these days in our around the world, all this
Yes,
violence, and we have a war happening at this time between Russia and Ukraine. So it just doesn't, yeah, it's not, it doesn't feel natural. It really doesn't, all this violence. And with
I agree.
this in mind, I think this is a perfect moment to talk about the work that you're doing currently with police brutality victims. So, are we talking about the same thing? That police officers acting with brutality and rage because they have been traumatized?
I think so. Yes, I think usually when a police officer abuses his power, it's because he feels powerless really inside.
Yeah,
And that would come from probably his childhood, perhaps his father, his mother, or caregiver that
yeah,
made him feel powerless and worthless and not adequate enough.
yeah.
So that's the same as a bully in school. He was
Right.
probably bullied by his parents, and therefore he's bullying someone else to
Yeah,
make him think he's getting power back.
right,
So,
right.
so that's what really happens in that case.
Ah, so what is your suggestion? How have you been dealing with this situation that's already under development? It's happening here now, and how what can we do? What can you do as a therapist to change the situation, Robert?
Okay, a few things. I was contacted by a renowned civil rights attorney, knew my work with trauma,
Yeah,
um, and he said, "Would you take on some of my cases because they need emotional help, the
yeah,
victims of it?" So
yeah,
I thought about it, and I says, "Yeah, I'll do that for society." And I said, "Let me do that," and I think I could help. So basically, the feelings of whether they're traumatized by their parents or whether they're traumatized by a police officer or someone else, the feelings are the same.
yeah,
Degraded, they feel rage, they
yeah,
feel injustice, they feel worthless, they feel defective, powerless. All those feelings are the same, whether they're abused by their parents or they were abused by the police. So I treat them with the same. Listen, I have to get those feelings out
right,
and released. And sometimes, and the third phase of my therapy is to confront the person who's hurt you.
right,
So in the case of the people that I deal with in my practice who are abused from their parents, the third phase is they go to their parents in some way and tell them how they were affected, how they felt about it, what was done to them. That
yeah,
completes the process, basically.
right,
So the ones who are police abuse, some of them are very afraid. They don't want to go to the police directly. So I
yeah,
have them write letters, but they don't send it.
right,
They write letters and say how they felt, um, what they want to say in it, how it's affected them, because they develop anxiety disorders and PTSD from it.
yeah,
All kinds of things, obsessions. They get addictions from it, from the pain.
wow,
So that's healing with the helping the victims of that.
yeah,
I also, and you gave me a really good idea last time, and I followed through on it. The police department. I mean, most of these guys, the men and women, and who work
yeah,
on the force, they want to serve and protect the community. They really do. They care about people. That's why I go into this for the most part.
right,
When I was younger, after I graduated undergraduate school, before I went to graduate school, I worked upstate in a camp for underprivileged children who were getting money by the city to go to this camp. And I was a lifeguard and I was a swim
yeah,
instructor. And it was just wonderful. And I lived with two policemen. I got an apartment with two. One was a detective, and they were just people that wanted to help the community, and they were just generous guys, and they
yeah,
protected me.
yeah,
I always felt
yeah,
safe. I
sure.
felt safe around them, and I always I felt an affinity towards them. But what happens is these guys also deal with the worst that humanity does to each other. They deal
Mm,
with murders,
right,
assaults,
right,
robberies, kidnaps, drunken driving accidents where people are killed and mangled. So
yeah,
all that frustration and pain that they deal with, it that needs to be processed and
right,
dealt with as well. Now, if you combine that, what they deal with on it every day, someone who was abused as a child, a policeman, you have an explosive
mm,
situation, and
yeah,
it's probably going to come out on the people that he deals with.
right,
So I think every policeman should be required to be in counseling, maybe
right,
once, twice a month. You could put in group counseling as well, but they should be required in some way
mm,
to be involved with counseling, where they're
right,
able to talk about their cases or talk about what happened to them as kids, just whatever they want to talk about. I think it would be a great thing. Right now, it's voluntary for them to go to counseling.
yeah,
The New York City Police Department pays for their counseling. It's free. They pay for medication if they need it, but it's voluntary. So I'm saying you want to really eliminate this. You got to deal with the sources and the pain. It has to be on an ongoing basis. So I wrote to the mayor of New York City.
you did.
I did. I did that. I
Wow,
wrote to the mayor of New York City. I
great,
haven't heard. I just wrote to him
yeah,
recently, and basically suggested that. And I said who I am
mm,
and what I do, and
yeah,
we'll see what happens. I don't know if I'll hear from him, but
oh my
I,
God,
I'm able to do that. It was on a website, and I wrote to him, and
yeah,
we'll see what happens. So that's my feeling. If we have to help these people too, the police, so they don't take
right.
their powerlessness out on other people.
Right, right. Thank you so much, Robert, for doing that. That's the first step, right? The initiative. The
Yes,
all of us like, doing whatever we can to basically address the root of the problem, because that's what healing ultimately really is.
yes,
We don't want to just take care of the symptoms and take care of the victims. We need to find out why are they becoming traumatized and
correct.
go to the source.
That's what the therapy is, source completion therapy. Exactly.
Right. Oh, yeah. Right. Just said that without even thinking.
That's
Right. Right.
exactly
Right.
what it is. If you don't go to the source, like you were saying, and you have it, you're
Yep.
so clear on this,
Yep.
it will always come out. It will always come
Yes.
out and hurt you in some way. There is no doubt in my mind. I've been doing this
Yes.
for a number of years. I don't think there's any other way.
Yes. And I agree. Wholeheartedly agree. Another question that came to me is do you think or feel that by having power, when we give power to someone, let's say the police officers, um, could that actually open the door to abuse? Could human beings really become abuse the power they have? That's basically the question.
Yeah, if they're not complete with your stuff, if
Uh,
all their stuff
oh,
is
it's still, yeah,
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 that's where it
that's
would
good.
come from. If they're cleaned
Mm,
out, the
mm.
answer would be no. I
Ah,
don't have
yeah,
any desire with whatever power I've had or have to
right,
abuse other people.
right,
I just want to
right.
help them.
Okay, so that's very beautiful to hear. So healthy people don't abuse their power. They
Correct.
don't try to control others,
Correct.
manipulate, overpower anyone because they are healthy. And that's
Correct.
another question I usually ask my guests. What defines being mentally healthy? Like, how would you phrase that, describe the mental state of being healthy?
Yeah, again, if you have released enough of those feelings that you
Mm.
suppressed, if you've released enough of them and your diversions evaporate, you're healthy.
So it's the absence of diversions, which really means. Can you please explain a little bit more about that for those who don't know, Robert, what diversions are?
Okay, so again, the diversion is, remember, if you stuff all these feelings inside from your child, they want to come out. So they're going to come out
Yeah,
in these diversions, obsessions, and phobias, because consciously you don't want to feel them. But
right.
the subconscious pushing it out, they sort of make a compromise. It squeezes
Right.
through a phobia, obsession, a
Mm.
compulsion. I had a woman, she would very compulsive about cleaning and obsessive about cleaning. She would clean her house every morning. She would vacuum all the rugs.
Yeah.
Then after she vacuumed every rug in the house, it was a huge house. She'd get down on her hands and knees with a comb and go
Ah,
through all the strands of the rug to complete it.
wow.
It would take her 3 hours. She would do that every day. So that
Wow.
compulsion is. So the source of that, though,
Ah.
was her father was an alcoholic, abused her. Alcohol was more important than she was, the way she felt, and he
Yeah.
was mean to her and abusive, and she didn't want to feel it. So it came out.
Yeah.
All the energy came out
Mm.
in this um, obsession and compulsion. When
Right.
she was with me for a number of years, got that out. She wrote to her father many times, talked to him. That obsession stopped. That
Yeah.
diversion stopped. No longer needed it,
Mm.
and then she was
Mm.
healthier.
Ah, okay. So the versions are patterns. So they have to be repetitive. It's something that we do, like you just mentioned, addiction, obsession. So over and over and over again. It's something that we're just obsessed with. That makes a lot of sense because we do have habits. So not to be confused with habits, especially good ones. They are not, they are not that.
Right, right.
Or I think in my case, I remember being obsessed about going out, about working out and being really fit. So I
Yes,
had to
yes,
go to the gym. I had to do all that stuff. And for everyone around me, it looked very healthy. That was a beautiful habit. Wow, I admire you so much. And I got so much, what do you call it? I was complimented so much for it that I kept doing it. It was feeding actually that
yes,
compulsion.
yes,
So, and that's the interesting thing because that seemed really like it was a legit, habit and
yes.
compulsion, if you can say, but it wasn't. It was actually an unhealthy one.
Perfect. And people think they're doing something really healthy, and
Yes.
they're just obsessed. It's just It's just another diversion. It keeps them away from the really painful feelings. That's what that
Yes.
does.
Right.
People who are obsessed with food, obsessed with healthy food, even they won't eat this, we don't eat that because,
Yeah.
and they so obsessed with it. Anytime you're obsessed about anything,
Mm,
you're diverting from
mm,
deeper feelings. Okay,
mm.
anytime. Same with
Yeah.
addictions. Whether and working out is can be an addiction. It gets to be an
Yeah.
addiction as well.
Yeah.
So
Right.
anything, smoking, gambling,
Yeah.
all of it.
That really, it was shocking to me. Like when I really uncovered that truth that I was hiding. I was trying to suppress, still suppressing those childhood traumas. I brought that into adulthood, and I was trying to cover up with them.
Yes.
So that was really surprising when I found out, and I was writing about, actually. I wrote about all that. Thank you so much, Robert. You're so insightful. I mean, just even to think about this, because it gets me thinking about, and if I'm doing continue to do that in a different way, in a more subtle way. I just kind of, I love the work of self-awareness and
Yes.
self-knowledge. So I'm very, very careful. So I listen to everybody that I talk to and kind of look into my own life to see if I'm still doing that in some way or another.
Yes.
And hopefully not, but I think it's probably still there. Some of the insecurities, because I remember, because I have been abused in a sense of emotionally, physically abused, a lot affected self-esteem. So I see how much of that it's still here, and small things that I do trying to cover up some insecurities. So that's
Yes.
kind of interesting to watch.
Yes. I understand. Each diversion, how to tell if it's a diversion, I think we touched on it a little bit. Intensity, also the duration, how long it might last, and then the frequency that you do the behavior.
Uh,
Those are usually the diversions. They have those three components to them.
right. Okay. So that's good to know.
Look, you could go into yoga. People go into yoga and they think, well, it's solving my all my stuff. Look at me.
Yeah.
You go yoga 6 times
Right.
a day, 6 times a week, morning, noon, and night. And
Yeah.
I say, you're diverting. You're not dealing with the feelings. That's what you're doing. You think it's healthy. It's not. It's not.
Hmm.
Not at all.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. Now I'm getting into, I do a lot of spiritual work. So one of the teachings that I follow, of course, coming from the heart, which really means being spontaneous, being in the moment, being not programmed in a sense of overthinking or try to come from memory. And see, that's a big thing for me now. So what are the things that I cannot remember from the things that I have learned before from books and people that I talk to, but I can still say the same thing from the heart now. It's still true to me. It feels true. And it's coming from a place that's almost like a deeper knowing. It's not really from memory anymore. And I'm trying to kind of navigate that realm of thinking, and without overthinking or memorizing everything and just being like a robot repeating things.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. So you just want to make it more natural, like you're doing, like you're trying to do.
Yes,
I
right,
understand.
right. Which it is natural living as well, being
Yes.
more spontaneous. It's sometimes it's hard to do in a sense of time, when we have to be on time, and then we have to do things for money and all that. That doesn't seem very natural, but it's still part of life, right? We have to be aware of that too.
Yes, and you don't want to shut that out as well.
Right,
We have to have a roof over our head and
right.
food to eat and, car. Yeah, I'm aware of that as well. Even though material things are not important to me, I still, in order to live and function, I do. Yeah,
Right,
you have
right.
to be aware of that.
Yeah. So thank you so much for this conversation. It feels very good every time I talk to you. It's really, there's this feeling of heartwarming. It warms the heart, and I just thought about this today, and when we talked before, there's something about you that's very trust inspiring. That's what it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, you really inspire trust. That is so important in a healer, doctors and therapists. That's the base of everything. So thank you for that.
And I thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be with you and to speak with you. And your work is wonderful with others, and it's also wonderful with what you're doing for yourself and how
Yeah.
what you've had to overcome. So I'm impressed with that. I'm proud of you, and I thank you.
Thank you, Robert. So before we say goodbye for today, what is one message you wish everyone who watches this video to take with them?
Never ever repress a feeling.
Yeah,
Always work with that. Don't push it down. It will always come out in dysfunctional ways, even if it's a feeling you have in the present. Okay,
yeah,
even if you think you finished with your past, don't ever suppress a feeling in the present. Okay, if
yeah.
it's your husband that you're with, or a boyfriend, girlfriend, friend,
Mm.
child, don't suppress those feelings. They will come out in ways that you're not going to be happy with.
Yeah, I love that because this is the central message of these conversations too, to be free to feel. So just let the feelings just pass through and do the work that they have to do.
Correct.
Thank you so much again. And before we say goodbye again, where can we find more information about you, your work, your services, your future project?
Sure. Okay. My website is Robert Bleck, Robert Bleck.com. That's the website. The book Give Back the Pain. You can get it a lot of places. Amazon seems to be popular. Uh,
Yeah,
Give Back the Pain on Amazon.com. And everything is on my website or in the book that talked about today. And anybody who wants to email me, my email address is on my website, so you could email me and any questions. I'd be glad to answer them.
wonderful. Thank you so much again, and we'll talk soon. Bye for
Okay,
now.
Valeria.